This is Josiah Plays Tyranny. Okay, we're back at the Spire, and we're going to talk to our companions. So they're going to go in the order that they were received. So next up is Ebb. She's been waiting her turn for a while now. We're going to have a lengthy chat with Ebb. I'm having a hard time. You know how I'm trying to do voices for everybody and stuff, right? Having a hard time doing voices for Ebb, Siren, and Verse because... Well, mainly because I can't make my voice sound like a woman's voice. But also because their voices are pretty normal. You know, they don't have a weird accent or anything. So, I mean, I've got a style in my mind for each one. Well, I have a style in my mind for Siren and Verse. But they're going to sound pretty similar to each other, these three, because they all have pretty normal female voices, you know what I mean? But I don't have really any style for Ebb at all. Like, she has the most normal, in my opinion. So her voice has, like, almost no special quality to it that I can attempt to mimic, you know what I mean? So, anyway, they're going to sound more similar to each other than I would like, ideally. But I'm not an amazing expert voice actor or good at mimicking or doing impressions or... you know, doing strange things with my voice to make myself sound like a woman or another type of person or whatever, so... Ebb's voice is the hardest to try to make sound unique. Ebb nods at your approach and offers a curt bow. So we have a fuck ton of loyalty with Ebb. Wow, I didn't realize Ebb fucking loves us. We're almost to tier 5 with her. Siren is not going to sing her lines. We're not doing that. We are not doing that.
What is it you need?
Ebb is the grieving mother voice. Same voice actress as Grieving Mother but she doesn't talk the same way that she talked when she was Grieving Mother. We should discuss matters at hand.
I'm still amazed we survived the Edict of Execution. The Chorus may outnumber us, and the Disfavored seem to grow more aggressive every passing span. But we've endured our neap days. The struggle now turns in our favor.
I think I already asked her this.
The classic option for a land war in the tiers is higher.
Yeah.
If you think you could convince the Forge, the idea I was pitching to the Vendrian Guard. There's also the slim chance we can drive if we really want to hate ourselves in the morning. And while I don't endorse this, I must list all the options. I'm still amazed we survived the Edict of Execution.
Let's talk of something else.
Of course. What is it you need?
I have some questions for you.
Ask away.
I'd like to ask you about our travel companions. She nods, silently awaiting your follow-up. What do you make of Beric?
My one concern with Beric is that he's still loyal to Graven Ash, and not to you. Beric seems steadfast, faithful, and dependable. But if it comes down to you versus Graven Ash, therein lies the test.
That's a good point. Would Beric actually side with me against Graven Ash? Doesn't seem like he would. If it weren't a tactical asset, it'd be fun to try and pry him out of that suit. Curious to see if his midsection is as strong, firm, and taut as I've imagined it should be. Oh, so she has a little bit of a thing for him too. It's mutual. She's been thinking them kind of thoughts about... Man, how do you think those kind of thoughts about somebody that's literally walking around covered in shit and smelling like shit all the time, though? Like... Honestly, as soon as I smelled that, I wouldn't be thinking, I'll bet he's got a hot bod under that armor. I'd be like, God, get the fuck away from you, you stinky fuck. I don't know, though. I guess there's no other dudes around for her to, you know, assuming she's just heterosexual. There's not really any other dudes around. I mean, there's Lantry, but Lantry's old, you know what I'm saying? So he's not exactly a sex symbol. So, yeah. I mean, obviously Beric must be very fit. That's true. But still, the stinky shit smell. What are your thoughts on verse?
We should consider ourselves fortunate that one of the most deadly members of the Scarlet Furies considers you a suitable gang leader. That said, I think her involvement with you is entirely suspect. I would wager good money the voices of Neratis listening through her, or perhaps seeing what she sees.
Yeah, his armor does make him look like he has a dad bod, but I think that's just the armor. Honestly, if he's running around constantly in all that armor and having to carry that everywhere with him and fight it and stuff, he's got to be pretty fucking fit. Dude, I know what a golden shower is in Animus. I wouldn't need to Google that. And I would never Google that anyway, because I'm sure some of the images would be horrifying. I don't have a problem with Voices of Nerat spying on me. I like Voices of Nerat. I don't have a problem with Verse being a spy for Voices. Doesn't bother me. What's your take on Lantry?
Probably the only word thief I haven't wanted to dismember. Him? I'd merely flay with an ice knife.
Yeah, those two fucking hate each other. The only real group of two people, I mean, yeah, Barrick and Verse have their little spat because they're siblings, but the only two people in my party so far that really seem to really dislike each other are Ebb and Lantry. The Wandering Scholar thing seems an act. It's always an act with the sages, always pretending to know less than they really do. I'm sure he's got 1,000 reasons for why he's not like them, or more trustworthy than the rest. But I know his type, and so I don't trust him. Oh, that's high praise coming from you. I'm going to take this staff and repeatedly jam it into your backside until you prolapse. Wow! Oh, shit, she did just not say that. Threatening a motherfucker with anal prolapse? Damn! Ebb is officially pretty fucking saucy. Let's put it that way. Ah, just like that. Balance is restored to all known existence. You had me worried there. Prolapse ain't no joke. Okay. That's some shit not to Google. Do not go to Google and type in anal prolapse on a Google image search. Don't do it. Man, I wish Robert was here. I would try to tell Robert to do it and see if we could get him to. It's a horrible thing to do, but I don't care. Alright, what do you make of Siren? You gotta take a moment to recover after the word prolapse gets thrown out there. What do you make of Siren?
We've all heard legends of child archons, but Siren is the real thing. She's so very jaded for her age. But I'd be a sour ninny shitter too if I had a contraption stuck on my head limiting my greatness.
A ninny shitter.
I'll tell you this much. Her hatred of the voices of Nerat is either genuine or a most fantastic act. But being a giant liar, I know another liar when I see one. And I'd wager this gripe is sincere.
I'm well aware that she may have already said something to me to make her more comfortable with her presence. And if she did, how would I know, she influencing me or not? If she is playing me, I applaud how well she's doing it. Tell me your thoughts on Kills in Shadow.
So long as she doesn't perceive you weak enough to challenge, Kills in Shadow should prove a fearsome, loyal retainer.
I find it strange. In humans, Kairos' invasion spawned despair, surrender, rage. But the Beastmen seem almost indifferent to Kairos, and unshaken by the constant state of war the Tears have seen.
And Kills in Shadow adopts this optimism more than any. Seems she has no room to be sad about what the Overlord has destroyed. She seems to care only about what can be carved out of what remains. I try to find inspiration in that.
Let's change the subject.
Ask away.
Alright, we've got lots of subjects to go through. Let's speak of magic.
You know, I normally charge for this, but for you...
Ab smiles, awaiting your query. If I had $1 for every time a woman said I normally charge for this, but for you. then I would have $0. What can you tell me about your magical tradition?
Now, you know that's a very personal question. The knowledge I have is a centuries-old gift from the Archon of Tides. I would sooner discard my life than the sanctity of that gift. I will speak in generalities only.
Wow, here we go. Ask. Worst I can do is not tell you. Tell me about how you influenced Tiratus grave. That is a trade secret. Or at least, was a trade secret up until a few years ago. My masters were taken before Voices of Nerat, and he pried that wisdom from their minds. Not that I'm still bitter. This is because of me. Because of my conquest decision to give the Tidecaster mages to Nerat to interrogate. My bad, Ebb. Sorry. The now-defunct School of Tides was largely conquered before any troops crossed the Gates of Judgment, with much of the school learning of Kairos' intended conquest and opting to flee and take their chances across the unknown expanse of oceans west of the Tiers. The last of the Tidecasters joined with the Defenders of Apex, clashing with Kairos' forces in 429. When the generals could not decide on how best to deal with these water mages, you broke the deadlock. Select the Voices of Nerat's plan to have the mages met by a flood of conscripts to be taken alive for the Archon's interrogation. While the trio of Tidecasters slew hundreds on their way down, the water mages were ultimately overwhelmed, brought before the Voices of Nerat, and never heard from again. Well, you know, the good news is, in a way, you could think about it that they're still alive, in a sense, in that they're alive within the Voices of Nerat. Tell me how you influence ice, mist, and other forms of water. With years of training. Now look, most of these secrets have already been stolen ages ago by the sages. It doesn't mean I'm going to tell you just because the secret's already out. But it means you can go ask someone else if you really feel so entitled to know. And before you ask, I've learned plenty of knowledge stolen from the sages. But no, I don't know how to do what Ab does. Magically or otherwise. Can you teach me what you know? No, can you teach me what you know? I suppose I am capable of it, but no. The secrets of the Archon of Tides dies with me. The Archon of Tides. Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides, is the founder of the School of Tides as well as its only ruler. Though she wore the title Archon, Occulted Jade never bowed to Kairos, though many have tried to compel her to do so. Having arrived with the settlers that made landfall at Five Wives, she is perhaps the oldest known living Tiersman. Capable of manipulating the oceans, the moons, and all the transitory forms of water, Occulted Jade used her magic to form a cabal of seafaring traders, musicians, and academicians, and it was the dedication to the arts that helped the school endure. For by teaching these trades to the children of noble families, the school remained in the good graces of the realms. Being able to control most anything cyclical and fluid, Occulted Jade has lived for centuries and could still be alive today, but none know with certainty. In the years before the conquest, the School of Tides discovered the Overlord's plan to invade. Despite all assumptions that the Tier's resident Archon would defend her school and home, to the surprise of everyone, the Archon vanished across the seas, taking nearly the entire School of Tides with her into exile across uncharted waters. You know, you gotta wonder what the fuck the ones that didn't get taken with her across the sea did wrong. Like, those are the ones they didn't like. And you notice Ebb isn't one of the ones that got taken with them across the sea. So Ebb must have just been too obnoxious for them to, like, no, don't take Ab. She's got too much attitude. Ooh, I could try to command her. I mean, I don't want to, really. But, interesting. What are the philosophical teachings of your magic? There's a question I can answer. It would surprise you little to learn that we see all things, people, wars, seasons, to be cyclical, waxing and waning through their various forms like the tides and the light of Tiratus grave. Tyranny the planet has 2 satellites visible by the naked eye. The tide-locked Tyranny Grave and the rapidly orbiting Interloper. Scholars have long studied the effects of these 2 moons on the ocean currents, and a great deal of folklore concerns the origins of the moons. A common belief in Kairos Empire is that Tyranny Grave will finally set on the horizon when Tyros' rule ends. Whereas those of the Tiers insist the moons are older than the old walls and will outlive even Kairos. I think it's safe to say the moons are older than the old walls. The mind is limited. We're born and spend our lives dodging death. We expect all stories to have a beginning and an end. We assume all things start and stop just like us. In truth, all things are cycles, some by matter of minutes, others by matters of years or lifetimes. In the School of Tides, we appreciate patterns of all sorts. Most are called to the depths, others find their interests skybound. Many still find the tides of human emotion and political fortunes far more intriguing than inanimate tides found in the orbits and oceans. From what archon did the Tidecaster draw upon for their magic? We just went through this, but I'm asking anyway. The first Tidecasters were given the gift of magic by our school's founder, Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides. Just read this. Though she was not of Kairos' ilk, she was as powerful as any Archon, and from her name and legacy we can mimic the moon's pull on the seas and change the currents. We just read this. And it's from her that we have spells to turn the moon's pleasant hues into a baleful ray of searing grave light. In all these years I have not grown tired of the thrill of power. It's a rush of carnal humors every time. Searing grave light. Grave light is the magical term for the light of the moon Tyranny Grave, specifically when harnessed and manipulated for nefarious purposes. Nefarious. While the moon's rays are normally incapable of causing so much as a mild sunburn, the Tidecasters have long studied magic that can concentrate these rays into bolts and beams of searing doom. The Tidecasters have spent centuries trying to mimic and control the moon's tidal pull on the oceans, and will often mention that diverting moonlight is the easy stuff compared to pulling and pushing the tides. But modern times have forced the School of Tides to concentrate on the more martial applications of this magic. Diverting moonlight, cool. Moon magic. Does the lore say the radius of the planet? No, the lore doesn't have any kind of specific information about the size of the planet or anything like that. I'm guessing you can tell me more than I ever wanted to know about the moons. You'd be right. My magic is generally associated with the moon Tyranny Grave, but you have to know where Interloper is in the sky when mucking about with mystic forces. Do you control water, or do you mimic the tidal effects the moons have on water? Both, actually. I'm amused you're keen on the difference. Our spells of ice and mist affect water directly, but are of limited volume. Displacing your own body weight in water is no mean feat. But if we're to move an ocean current, I'd drive myself nuts moving water in front of a boat a little at a time. That's where I'd use a cantrip to simulate a tidal pull. Tyranny Grave is the big one, right? Tell me about it. Tyranny Grave is fixed in the sky, always overhead, day and night. It was first named by folks living far to the east. They'd look to the west and see the moon like a permanent hill on the horizon. A grave where the sun dies each evening. How does that work? I mean, I don't know anything about astronomy or anything. So if the moon is always overhead day and night on one side of the planet, presumably, how is that possible? Does that mean the moon doesn't orbit the planet? How does that work? I mean, if we're talking in terms of real life astronomy, Is that even a possible thing that could happen, or is it just because this is fantasy that they can have a moon that the planet's rotation is matching the moon's revolution? Just like our artificial satellites. Oh, I see. Anonymous. I see what you mean. Okay. That's how the older folks saw it. If you live in the western part of the world, Tyrannus' grave is overhead all the time. That means that day and night it's reflecting the sun's rays. And if you know what you're doing, it doesn't just reflect, it magnifies. Interloper is the one that moves in the sky, if I remember the lessons correctly. Exactly. Interloper orbits Tyrannus at a steady clip, and its orbit sometimes crosses in front of Tyrannus' grave, leading to mystical calamity if you don't know what you're doing. Gotta watch out for that mystical calamity. Which is why the dark side of the moon is always away from the Earth. Ah, right. Let's talk of something else. Ask. Worst I can do is not tell you. Have you heard anything from the Tidecasters that left before the war? No, and I don't like entertaining the hope. Those cowards are all gone. If they didn't die at sea, they are dead to me. I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised if they come back, eager to fight the good fight. But I'm not holding my breath. All the brave Tidecasters died, present company accepted. Sounds like she's just mad because she got left behind. Fine, we can talk about other arcane matters.
You know, I normally charge for this, but for you...
Ebb smiles, awaiting your query. Do you know anything of the magic of the Archons? Enough to know I'm out of my element. That is to say, I've studied the many Archons a great deal, and I have a great number of hypotheses and conjectures, but, well, I'm no expert yet. And like most who have invoked the Archons of times past to work magic, I do wonder what difference of birth or experience gives one the magical potential to be an Archon. Most of my studies have been into the question of origins of form. It's known we can emulate the magic of Archons that came before us. But is it possible to tap into the magic of Archons yet to be? So far, the answer seems to be no. She looks at the ground with a rumpled smirk. Yes, she considers Occulted Jade a coward, I would say. Or she's just saying that because she's pissed that Occulted Jade didn't take her with her. Know anything about the old walls and the spires? Not enough. Never enough. Ebb smiles, twirling her staff in her hands. As a child, I was terrified of the old walls. I think that's true of most folk. Now that I can arc gravelight with a wiggle of my fingers, well, I think when I'm a shriveled old hag, dying in the old walls would be a great way to go. Alright, we read about gravelight already. What can you tell me of the Bane? What I know is largely taken from Master Camberel's work, and some near-fatal experience venturing close to the old walls. As best I understand it, the Banes are bits of magical will that have an extended life of their own. I'm of the belief that they nest or reproduce in the old walls, the only place you regularly find them. Our magic attracts the Bane. That much I know to be true firsthand. Again, this is personal theory, but I'm guessing they eat or drink magic, so our spells are invitations to dine.
Water mystics' insight is keen. Have also honed claws by hunting Bane?
The beast woman sniffs and gives a slight nod. She rumbles a light purr of approval.
Well, I left out the part about all the times I've had to run for my life because I got too curious.
Eb lifts up the fabric of her sarong to show a deep scar on her hip. She chuffs happily. She shakes her mane and snorts.
Is nothing. His scar-brewed whelps earning second season kill. Scars of near death are cut deeper.
She traces one of the longer, jagged lines that jigsaw her ribs and chest. How are you still alive?
Will not die so easily. I'm not like humans.
Alright, so she's tough, I get it. Let's change the subject.
Ask away.
What do you know of arcane society?
I know a great deal of the mages of the Tears, or at least their history. Most are dead now. I know a little less about the guilds sworn to Kairos as archons, but I try to make an effort to know my opposition.
Tell me of the Earthshakers. The Earthshakers are the disciples of Cairn, Archon of Stone, and they share their master's command of tremors and soil, and they also share Cairn's aloof, brooding temperament. From what I gather, the Earthshakers serve the disfavored, but the relationship has been deeply strained by Cairn's fall from grace. I could imagine there's the fear Cairn shared with them something I could imagine there's the fear Cairn shared with them something subversive or treasonous. Tell me about the Blood Chanters. The Blood Chanters are the voices of Nerat's cabal of mages. Their magic is taken from the Sigil of Siren, and from techniques stolen from the School of Wild Wrath. Namely, their magic of fire is learned from Thousand Embers, Archon of Fire. They barely qualify as a proper school or guild. Most of them barely literate, and I bet most of them didn't learn a damn thing, just had their knowledge shoved into their heads by Nerat. They've all the brutal buffoonery of the chorus, but with the magic to make their bloodlust contagious. Their only redeeming feature, guess they make the sages seem not half bad. Yeah, there was once an animus, except you had to attack from stealth and then you'd get a regen bonus for the whole combat or something. Yeah, oh, you were gone when we read the whole big thing about that Archon of Fire. We read a big long lore thing that popped up about the Archon. That was one of the Archons of Fire. But that Thousand Embers, the Archon of Fire, actually only lived for a few years. And was executed by Bled and Mark. And now there is no Archon of Fire. What can you tell me of the Forgebound? The Forgebound have an unusual sort of magic. They specialize in slow, painstaking rituals that do not produce the dazzling blasts of energy and shards of flying ice like my own magic. Instead, their spells render them immune to the fires of the forge and at one with their tools of the trade. I admit a bit of fascination with the guild. I much prefer the power and brutality of my own magic. But if I lived in a calmer, wiser time, I think there could be great satisfaction in using magic to become the master of one's craft. Tell me about the School of Ink and Quill. She hates the School of Ink and Quill, so this'll be good. Behind the Tidecasters, the Sages of the School of Ink and Quill are the second oldest arcane institution in the Tiers. We go way back a ways. There's a lot of bad blood. If I'm being objective, the Sages claim to be scholars interested in collecting, archiving, and preserving lore from and for all humanity. They're quite keen to gather lore, but in no sense do they seek to share their knowledge with their Tiersmen. Many of our secrets have been pilfered by Sages' spies over the centuries, and we're not alone. The Sages have the secrets of many other guilds. Their generations of theft have made them versatile and dangerous. Filthy word whores, yeah. Tell me about your own guild, the School of Tides. Our patron, Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides, is as old as the settlers of the Five Wives. Read it. And for nearly 5 centuries, we were masters of the coasts and the rivers. These days, it's a school of one. You're looking at it. She thumps her chest with a bemused smirk. Why didn't your Archon fight in the war? About a year or so before the troops arrived in the Bastard Tier, Occulted Jade proclaimed the age of the Tiers was over, and said she'd depart southwest into unknown, unending ocean rather than face Kairos. Most of my guildmates went along, choosing to risk the endless high seas rather than risk battle. A few of us, the militants as our peaceful brethren dubbed us, chose to stand and fight. To my knowledge, I am the last of those who decided to stay and fight. Why would you stay and fight, especially if you know it's only going to be a few of you and you're going to get owned? What was your school like before the war? There was a time when the Tidecasters were the most powerful guild of the Tiers. The Kingdom of Haven accepted us as defenders of sea trade, and the noble houses gave us peace and quiet in exchange for teaching their sons and daughters music, writing, and navigation. Though the other schools coveted our knowledge, they feared our wrath. Between our destructive magic and our Archon patron, others knew that attacking us meant suicide. How did the school fall? The Archon Cairn issued a challenge, and Masters Fulvax, Hagravar, and Camberil leapt at the chance. I told them it was a hopeless clash. I think they were ready to die. I just gained fear with Ab for no reason. The end of the story you should already know. Some Fatebinders made sure the Tidecaster's Elder were taken in chains. Oh, that's why. Were taken in chains to the voices of Nerat. Not that I'm still bitter. She is. I was like, why did I gain fear? Oh yeah, because I did this. Some Fatebinders. By some Fatebinders, she actually just means me. My bad. You still mad about it? As the youngest Tidecaster still in the Tiers, I exercised the better part of valor and went into hiding. But then my sense of shame kicked in and... well, that's about when I fell in with the Vendrian Guard. Old as the Five Wives? By all accounts, Occulted Jade was among the initial settlers that made landfall in the Tiers before Kairos first cast an edict. Though she's a bit old and stooped, she looked amazing for nearly 500. Let's change the subject.
I know a great deal of the mages of the Tiers, or at least their history. Most are dead now. I know a little less about the guilds sworn to Kairos as Archons, but I try to make an effort to know my opposition.
What of other magical schools and guilds of the Tiers? There have been several to crop up and wither across the centuries. The Cutters Guild took their healing magic north centuries ago. The School of Flowering Winter always limped along as an inconsequential group of gardeners. Most other schools in the Tiers fizzled out early, slain by suspicious neighbors, or subverted and destroyed by one of the big 3 schools. Okay. Don't be passive-aggressive about it. You think that's not cool, Saito? Let's change the subject.
Ask away.
What can you tell me of the Archons in the Tiers?
Not entirely sure. Which is to say, there was a time I studied my enemy in great detail, but I've recently come to learn that much of my information was little more than lies and misdirection.
Eb scowls, pausing to scratch her ear. What of the voices of Nerat? The most vile thing to walk Taratus. The voices claim the masters of the School of Tides. He pulled from them their memories, then gave our secrets to the contemptible blood chanters. Man, she has had a lot of dialogue through the game since we first met her, all the way up till now, all about that one conquest decision. I really wonder how all these conversations go if you didn't do that. Because she has had, like, I don't know, at least 10 different nodes of dialogue specifically about that decision. It's not easy to be her or her hairdo. You know, if you command water magic, it's probably pretty easy to, water and wind magic, it's probably pretty easy to just use magic to do your hair. Would the blood chances have been weaker? I don't know. It's an interesting question, Saito. The voices claimed the masters of the School of Tides. He pulled from them their memories, then gave our secrets to the contemptible blood chanters. If I can burn that thing off the face of Tyrannus, my life will not have been wasted. But in truth, I am learning that most of what I know is just lies and misdirection. Though I guess he'd be a poor Archon of Secrets if I had my facts straight. What do you know of Graven Ash? Before the conquest, I assumed Graven Ash a harmless old man, an Archon in name only, past his prime. I could not have been more wrong.
Many have underestimated the great general by his age. Few of them have made the mistake twice.
Ash is a remarkable general. He's led his tiny band of disfavored on a nearly unstoppable rampage of the Tears, and he does not seem to win his wars with obvious displays of mystic powers, but with old-fashioned leadership and good soldiers. A year or so back, under a blue flag talk with a commander, I was told that the Archon knows the name of every soldier under his command, living and dead. The way the disfavored speak of Ash, you'd think he raised each of them from the cradle. Yeah, I just read a bunch of stuff about Graven Ash in the guidebook before I started playing this morning, and apparently he's a pretty fucking awesome dude. They said he's like an amazing melee combatant, that basically he can beat any 10 fucking members of the disfavored by himself and shit, and that he has dozens of family members, actual blood family members in the disfavored. He has tons of like cousins and nieces and nephews and stuff in the ranks, and that he loves every member of the disfavored as if they were all his actual family. He seems like kind of a dick when you meet him in the tent and listening to him talking, but everything that's written about him and everything the disfavored say about him makes him sound like the fucking awesomest army dad ever. You like how Barrack and Kills are both kept far away from the bulk of everyone else there, except this guy. Whatever his name, the Swindler. For some reason, he has to stand right next to Barrack. He must have no sense of smell. Know anything of Cairn? Enough. She inhales sharply, folding her arms with a scowl. The Tidecasters fought well. You can be proud of that. Hardly. Master Fulvax and Hagravar should have died on their feet. That would have spared them the indignity of being dragged like war trophies. Yeah, I read this. Why the hostility? The Archon of the Stone destroyed much that I hold dear. I'm glad he's dead. What more need I say? There's clearly a story here. I'd like to hear it. A few years back, the remaining Elder Tidecasters met Cairn in battle. Tall as 10 men, all but invincible, and I thought nothing could stop us if we stood together. Why would you try to fight an Archon? That's just dumb. Whatever, it's old history. I can be pretty fucking salty right here. Everyone died except you. Color me surprised. She does not like that. I'm glad you lived through it all. I'm not, and I don't need your pity. Let us speak of other things. The Archon of Dried Fruits. Man, some of the Archons probably did have some bullshit abilities compared to others. Like the Archon of... Archon of Fungus, that was one of them. That's an actual one in the game. That one sounds fucking stupid. Mage's interrogation is the new AUG problem. Give it a rest, Katara. Can't even ask her about Karen again. Yeah, I noticed that, Nox. Alright, I'm sure Siren will pipe up here, as she does every time anybody else talks about her. What do you know of Siren? Oh, I guess not. She's standing right there. Why not ask the expert? Wow, so she probably would have had different shit to say about Siren if I'd asked her this before we got Siren in the party. Interesting. Interesting. Let's change the subject.
Ask away.
I have questions about the people of the Tears.
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
No, it doesn't matter if she's in the party. Anybody that's at the Spire counts while we're here. Now, I could kick Siren out of the party, leave the Spire, then ask her. That's the only way I could do it. But I don't want to kick her out of the party, leave the Spire, and come back. That's a lot of loading to bring her back into the party. For one question that I probably won't get that much out of. Time to reload the autosave. Alright, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's just do it.
Ask away.
For science. We have to do this for science. Alright, let's grab Kills in Shadow.
Fate Binder.
Siren, get to stepping. Let's go downstairs. For science. Come on, loading screen. Yeah, I thought about that, Nox. I'll remember it. She'll tell you, go upstairs and ask. That would be hilarious, actually. Siren is right upstairs. Go ask her. That would be funny. Oh no, we got long loading screen here. Don't do this to me, game. Don't do it to me. Don't do it to me. Okay, good. Alright, let's try this shit again.
What is it you need? Ask away. Not entirely sure.
I'm sure there may be younger Archons in the historical records, but Siren is certainly an unusually powerful child. Oh, see, Siren wouldn't have liked that, being called a child. It's said half of the Scarlet Chorus was recruited by Siren's persuasive song, and I'd not doubt it. I also know the voices of Nerat put a shackle on her power. That's what the helmet is. Probably feared she'd become the favorite of the rabble. Yeah, I mean, based on the short story and what I know about Siren from, you know, the reading stuff, is she's a bad motherfucker if she didn't have that helmet on. If she didn't have that helmet, she would literally challenge any of the other Archons. I mean, she could raise an army of everybody in the world if she wanted to, if she didn't have the helmet. Or just make everybody everywhere just start killing each other. I mean, she's potentially the most powerful Archon. In theory. I mean, especially since she's so young, and they said the Archons get more powerful over time. So if she was left to her own devices and not controlled, and could survive long enough to develop her power to its fullest, she could actually challenge Kairos for ruling the world. So that's why they put the fucking helmet on her. I wouldn't call a 15-year-old a child. I certainly wouldn't, especially since I was on my own from the age of 14. So, I consider a 14-year-old at least potentially an adult. Whether somebody's an adult or a child in those intermediate years probably depends more on their personal maturity, how they've been raised, how capable they are, you know, how emotionally mature they are, and so forth. A 14-year-old could still very much be a child, or a 14-year-old could very much be an adult. It really just depends. If you go to the bastard shitty, she instead will say, "Did you seriously drag me out here just to ask me that fucking question?" That would be amazing. I already asked her about Siren in the travel companions section, Nox.
Ask away. We've all heard legends of Child Archon. I'll tell you this much. Her hatred of the...
Yeah, see, we've been through this. We've been through this.
Ask away.
That's why I'm wondering, maybe I'll get a chance to take Siren's helmet off. And then it's like, you know, she would be an enormous weapon against Kairos at that point. Because Siren could turn all of Kairos' armies against Kairos, in theory, if she wasn't being controlled. She might even be able to turn Archons against him. Against her, against it. It's like Magneto helmet, but the other way. Yeah. She immediately runs her head into a table corner and you get arrested for child negligence. Why did you take the helmet off of her? She immediately just starts slamming her head into a wall. Alright, let's get Siren back in the crew.
Good day, Fatebinder. It's always nice to see you.
That is so much different than the last time when we first met Siren and she was like, "Get away from me, worm!"
What do you need? Well then, let's go.
She sounds really excited about coming along. Well, if we had her loyalty up to really high, if she really liked us a whole lot, and then she would be a weapon on our side, I would think having her helmet off would be pretty rad. Okay. You know, I don't like our formation being quite this close. Basically, as groupies, Kairos has nuke letters. Nuke letters. Yeah, but maybe she could even control Kairos. Someone who can mind control anyone can never be someone else's weapon. You've got a point there, Anonymous. You've got a point. Kind of like the Unabomber, just way worse. Yeah, way worse. Way worse.
What is it you need? Ask away.
Alright.
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
I'm curious about the people of the tiers. I think you'll find each of us thinks themselves a child of Haven, as in my case, or a child of Azure, child of Apex, or what have you. But I suppose we tiersmen have our shared customs. The most treasured of those customs used to be the pride of being free of Kairos' rule. Did you have particular questions? When were the Tears settled? Human settlers arrived over 400 years ago, displaced from a war between what are now Kairos' realms of Trevin and Fertile Sands, a flotilla of barely seaworthy rigs, and headed west across the high seas.
Right and wrong. Beast Woman had grown from land long before ranging human packs arrived. But fledgling ancestors were also weak and hairless like humans now. Tribes had not yet grown strong in darkness and ocean and stone land.
You seem to be forgetting the locals who were here first. Forgive me, she's right. I'm being a little loose with the facts. Humans came here nearly 400 years ago, but the tribes have been here since... well, we don't know how long. Tearsmen will sometimes speak of the 5 wives. We use it to refer both to the first 5 settlements where the colonists made landfall, as well as to the 5 matriarchs that went on to form the ruling dynasties of the Tears. Of course, I'm leaving out the matter of the builders of the old walls. Who knows when they lived here and why they're gone. But those old walls didn't just fall out of the sky.
How does Water Mystic know old walls makers are gone? Beast women are still here, yet. Do not think Beast Woman could have carved old walls, even though tribes lived in lands long before humans?
I don't think the beasts built the walls. Or maybe the beasts are some sort of, like, evolutionary, de-evolved version of what the makers of the walls. Well, actually, there's... well, oh, that's Lantry. I was like, who the fuck's voice is this? Well, actually, there's no proof of... you know what? I'm just gonna shut up and keep my organs. Nice. Why don't men own land or women's ships? For centuries, it has been our way that the men own the ships, but the women own the harbors. Our customs don't truly prevent ownership, they limit inheritance. Lands pass to daughters, then sisters, then mothers and aunts. Ships pass to sons, then brothers, then fathers and uncles. It seems strange to outsiders, but it makes sense to me. Men are blessed with wanderlust, women with a sense of the permanent. Likewise, the captain of a ship can't pause to carry a child, and the men grow restless if left in place. In truth, the custom varies from place to place, and you'll find men with enough wealth own land, and women with enough sway own ships. As is often the case, the nobles pick and choose their traditions. Why didn't the younger realms stand united against Kairos? Are you trying to rub it in? Yes, the younger realms were defeated one at a time by the invaders. Maybe if I was Queen of the Tears, that wouldn't have happened. I would have accepted hubris or incompetent as valid answers. That's a great fucking line. Oh. Well then, what would Queen Ebb have done? Well, if magic's involved, you could devolve. Because magic could change all the rules of how evolution works. I would have taken the threat seriously the moment troops were stopped marching to the gates of judgment. Am I the only person whose mother mentioned that Kairos was a real threat? Opportunity, that's what killed us. Haven wanted to watch the Bastard tier fall first. Apex was hoping Haven would fall. Azure wanted Stalwart to be attacked first. Every realm of the tiers had some interest in watching their neighbors fail first. So we all held back our support until a year or so into the war. Too fucking late by then, squabbling idiots. Again, in my opinion, it wouldn't have mattered because edicts. Even if you'd worked together like champs, your working together wouldn't have protected you from edicts, so lol. Tiersmen live with greater numbers of beastmen. What's that like? The beastmen of the tiers are hardier and smarter than their kin elsewhere, and fortunately we have lived together in relative harmony for some time.
So slaughter and enslavement is form of kinship for humans? I'm thinking maybe Beast Woman should return same affection to packmate.
I like Kills in Shadow. She hacks a laugh and scratches at her scarred teats. There's a line we haven't heard in an RPG before. She scratches at her scarred teats. A brand new configuration of words. Make no mistake, life is difficult for most beastmen in the tiers, but compared to, say, how they are treated in the Northern Empire, I would like to think we tiersmen are a bit more modern and forward-thinking, even if just a bit. But I suppose I also take an overly optimistic view of our beastly cousins. I find their clumsy honesty endearing, and while no human will say nice things about my cooking, no beastman has ever said anything mean about my worst dishes. Let's change the subject.
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
I think we're about ready to stop here. Let's change the subject again. So, I still have some stuff to ask about in People of the Tiers, and I still have the Tell Me About Yourself. When we come back later, maybe you'll try to remind me. I'll probably remember, but try to remind me. And then we still have all of Siren and all of I might actually wait. I might actually wait on Siren and Kills in Shadow. Or I might do Siren and then wait on Kills in Shadow. And go do some other stuff first. Because going through, I mean, these companions have ridiculously large amounts of dialogue, which is awesome. I love that, and it's really good. But it's a lot per companion. If you go through all of the subsections and subsections of their subsections of topics to talk about. Sato disapproves minus 15. What are you disapproving about? Scarred teats or something else? Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. So, let me save my game. I wish this game had a training room, like in Masquerada. Someplace where I could go in and test out my powers and mess around with them. That would be really cool. Because I'd like to test out her powers and hers. Because I don't know what the fuck. Or just some like random monsters somewhere that I could just go fight, you know, that are just scrubs and out in the middle of nowhere and irrelevant. That I could just go kill and test out my stuff, but it doesn't seem to really be anything like that. Prolapsing elders and scarred wolf nipples were not what you were expecting. Well, it is Tyranny. It's not Super Happy Sunshine Land, E. It's Tyranny. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. So thank you for watching. This has been Josiah Plays Tyranny.